I'm happy to announce Scott Montgomerie, CEO and co-founder of Scope AR. Welcome you on stage. Scott has certainly developed to a thought leader over the last couple of years. And prior to Scope AR, he was VP of Engineering of Xfire and founder of SigTech, building smart social search solutions. So really looking forward to your talk, Scott, and show the audience where the ROI is.
Thanks very much. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Montgomerie, the CEO and co-founder of Scope AR. So we're industry pioneers. We've been doing this since about 2011. In fact, this is a picture of my co-founder, David, at a trade show in Las Vegas in 2012. So what you're seeing here is that's one of the first pairs of AR glasses that were, I think, ever built. Huge prototype. We built exactly 2 pairs. Really hard to build AR hardware. But that's the piece of equipment we're working on is a rock drill. It's a $250,000 device that's used for drilling rocks in quarries and stuff like that. So the response that we got from this trade show really informed our strategy around AR. We realized that there was an ROI. We kept hearing tremendous stories about how people could see the value in AR. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the hype cycle for a moment. So if you're not familiar with the hype cycle, essentially this is a technology construct that allows us to talk about introducing a new technology into a market. So initially there's a technology, everybody gets really excited about it and thinks about interesting use cases that they could be applied, and they try to apply it. And invariably, a lot of those fail. And so then we fall into something called the trough of disillusionment, where people are like, this technology is never going to get adopted. And then finally, people figure out actually where to use it and provide real ROI, to the point where we finally get to the plateau of productivity, where it's used on a daily basis. So a great example of this would be the internet. So in the early 90s, it became very easy to send electronic messages, emails, websites, and then a whole bunch of entrepreneurs built enterprises like Pets.com and early Amazon and eBay. And a whole bunch of these eventually failed in what we call the dot-com boom. That would be the trough of disillusionment. Then finally, we start getting companies like Yahoo and Amazon and things that are try to organize the internet, and we start to find utility. And then finally, we get things like Google and Facebook, where today we can't imagine what our lives would be without those types of applications. So I'd like to talk about AR and that hype cycle, just from my perspective, from as long as I've been doing it. So in 2011, we were at the height of expectations. We had just gotten the iPhone camera to be open, so we could do interesting things. There were SDKs out there like Wikitude, Mataio, Total Immersion, Vuforia, where you could start making experiences with it. But really, there wasn't a whole lot of use. Nobody was really using it. So then as we come down to 2017, we get great support from guys like Microsoft with HoloLens, Google with AR Core, Apple with AR Kit. So it's 2018, and where are we? So by a show of hands, how many people use an AR application in their day-to-day lives? Really? That's actually surprising. I was going to say scope people excluded. So there was a smattering of hands. It wasn't 0. I was expecting 0. So I'm here to tell you that in enterprise, there are people that are using AR applications every single day. So we're starting to see some really interesting practical applications, moving us into that slope of enlightenment. So further indication of this is the study from Harvard Business Review. It says that 87% of enterprises are either piloting or deploying in production AR or VR. And 20% are actually in production. So the reason for this, we believe that there's a lot of pilot studies going on out there. And those pilot studies, we believe, will have tremendous ROI, and this will shift. But I'd like to address the elephant in the room, the pilot project. We call it pilot purgatory. So there's probably a lot of companies in here, probably some innovation companies, or innovation teams at large companies that see pilots, but really haven't been able to move into production. And you're probably really frustrated. Why is that? Well, it's because we haven't really seen a lot of publicly available ROI. CIOs are engaging in pilot projects to see if there's ROI. So who is using AR today? Is it being used in real use cases? And what's the return on investment? So I'd like to present a few use cases with some of our key customers to talk about how this is being used in industry and what those metrics are. So I'm going to start with by far the coolest one. Lockheed Martin and NASA are building that thing. That is the Orion spacecraft, the next space shuttle that's going to get humanity to the moon and Mars, unless Elon Musk beats NASA to it, which is totally possible. But in any case, the technology is being used to manufacture one of the coolest things that humanity's ever created. So this is a billion-dollar endeavor, obviously. So here's a little picture of what the AR experience looks like. In this particular use case, it's fastening torque wrenches, or fastening fasteners with a torque wrench. So NASA and the US military and Lockheed generally categorize a procedure in terms of what's called the OODA loop. It stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And what they wanted to find out is if augmented reality could help optimize this process. So in any given procedure, the breakdown of observe, orient, decide, and act kind of follows something like this. And so to put it into common terms, think about IKEA furniture. You have to look at those paper instructions, read these kind of weird diagrams, do a mental mapping of those diagrams, pick the right part, disambiguate between one that looks like this and one that looks like this. On a drawing, it looks the same. And then put it together and put it in the correct orientation. And how many people have screwed up IKEA furniture? I definitely have. I'm not afraid to admit it. Most people have. So multiply the complexity of that by 1,000. And that's the challenge we're facing. So what were the results of using augmented reality to try to improve this? Well, they were dramatic. They were able to reduce the observe, orient, decide piece of this by 99%. And this wasn't just a one-off. They replicated this across a variety of procedures, from drilling to torque fastening. So they saw dramatic improvements from between 73% and 99% of that time to information. And that resulted in between 34% up to 50% improvement in productivity. So this is a picture of one of those AR experiences where on the spacecraft, you're seeing color-coded torque settings. So the spacecraft obviously has to withstand enormous pressure, either on launch or re-entry of the atmosphere. And each fastener has to be fastened to an exact torque setting. So what they've done is showed that in 3 dimensions, overlaying the torque setting on top of each fastener. So it's very, very fast to see that information. The traditional way of getting this information would be to look at a table and identifying a single torque or a fastener identifier, going to find that in 3D space, getting quality assurance to come by, make sure that what you're about to torque it to was the correct setting, and then going ahead and doing it. Simply by seeing that in 3 dimensions, they saved a tremendous amount of time. So this study was first reported back at Augmented World Expo in Santa Clara back in June. And since then, they've done a lot more extensive studies across a much wider variety of procedures. And they've gotten a lot better at it, to the point where they're now seeing overall between 42 and 46 productivity improvements across the board in most procedures. So that's definitely not a one-off. This is sustained return on investment. Second use case. So this is a company called Prince Castle. You've probably never heard of them. But if you've ever eaten at a fast food chain, you've probably been the beneficiary of something they manufacture. So these guys manufacture the toasters, the deep fryers, the egg makers in fast food chains. So there's not a technician inside of McDonald's to solve a problem whenever something goes wrong. There's way too many McDonald's out there. And so what they do is they rely on general contractors. So when something goes wrong, they call this general contractor. The general contractor calls Prince Castle to get help. And the big problem here is diagnosis. There's about 30 things that can go wrong with these pieces of equipment. And figuring out which one of those things have gone wrong is really the key. And just with a phone call, their diagnosis rate was terrible. About 90% failure in terms of first-time diagnosis. So we have a product called Remote AR that allows you to communicate over video with AR annotations. What it does is it allows you to facilitate that communication with simple annotations. It gives you that extra channel to communicate much better with a technician and provide guidance. So with this tool, They moved from a 10% success rate up to a 100% first-time diagnosis rate. And that actually reduced the labor cost by 50%. Now, another story. So one of the guys from Prince Castle was actually with us at a trade show, and he told this story about how a manager of a McDonald's called up Prince Castle and said, hey, my deep fryer's down. I've got a big problem here. How do I fix it? And Prince Castle said, well, it's going to be a couple days before we can send a technician out to help you solve this. But we're piloting this new tool, Remote AR. So if you want to roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty and try to solve the problem, we can totally walk you through it. So over a 2-hour phone call on Remote AR, the manager got his hands dirty, fixed the problem, fixed his deep fryer, and saved 2 days of downtime of his restaurant. Needless to say, he was a very happy customer. And so was Prince Castle. Use case number 3. So this is a customer, Unilever. If you're not familiar with what they do, go check your bathroom, your shower, probably your kitchen. They manufacture everything from bath products to food products to everything. It's amazing. So we worked with one of their factories in Gloucester in the UK. So this is an ice cream factory. Almost as cool as a chocolate factory, but ice cream. Actually, it's much cooler than a chocolate factory. So they have a major problem. First of all, this factory does not perform very well. And they're also losing experts. So in the next 5 years, they're going to lose 330 years worth of experience just by having baby boomers retiring. So these guys have spent 35 years learning exactly how to maintain and fix equipment and operate equipment. And that knowledge is literally walking out the door. So that's going to lead to increased downtime, increased errors, increased safety violations. It's a serious problem for pretty much every manufacturing industry in the Western world. So with Remote AR, what they wanted to do is help facilitate communication between those fairly unskilled frontline technicians and those limited experts that know what they're doing. Really just that knowledge transfer that we're trying to facilitate there. And this, the difference or the distance between these experts and technicians isn't even that far. On the left side, you've got a guy who is actually working on the factory floor. And just a few buildings over on the same campus is the guy that knows how to solve the problem. The problem is that when they manufacture ice cream, it's in a clean room. So if the expert has to physically co-locate with to go solve that problem, first of all, he has to get there, which takes an hour, and then he has to go through the clean room process, which takes an hour. So now you've got 2 hours of downtime just to start looking at the problem. So with Remote AR, they can telepresence in and try to solve the problem remotely, much, much faster. And they had dramatic results. This factory reduced their downtime by 50% using this tool. On this single line, in a single factory, they saved 80,000 euros per month, resulting in a 1,700% return on investment. Now, this factory has dozens of lines, and there are hundreds of factories worldwide. So this gets really interesting, real fast. Now, a second example in the same factory. So, when you're making ice cream, you have to maintain freezers. You're keeping things at sub-zero temperatures. Things break quite a bit, so you have to do monthly maintenance on it. And there's one single procedure on maintaining this freezer that was causing 24% of the incidents of freezer failure. And that resulted in $120,000 per loss per quarter. And this one little thing. Essentially, technicians were incorrectly fitting seals when they were doing maintenance on it. And so the ice cream would leak out, melt, get contaminated, and you have to throw out the entire batch. Obviously very bad. In addition, when technicians would go try to fix these problems, they would do it wrong. So the first-time fix rates were horrible. So what they did was they used WorkLink. So WorkLink is our product that allows you to create augmented reality instructions that make scalable content creation very easy. They had dramatic success with this as well. They saved 67% of their downtime. 67% less safety violations, and 67% less problems with this seal. And that resulted in $130,000 savings and a single problem per month, resulting in a 1,600% ROI. Use case number 4. So Caterpillar, a couple years ago, white-labeled our product, Remote AR, the remote assistance tool. And several dealers across the world have been using it. So this dealer in particular is located in India. And they have a familiar problem. They have a lot of frontline technicians, guys working on equipment. When downtime happens, they're not quite sure how to fix it. And they've got a limited number of experts that know what to do. So again, it's that knowledge transfer problem, trying to transfer what you know, that expertise, to your frontline workers as fast as possible to maintain your downtime. So with this use case, they were able to achieve 25 to 75% time savings, just simply by using this simple tool. And with this, a 60% ROI. Now, based on the previous ROIs, that looks low. But this is rural India. Our software isn't cheap. We're a Western company. And our software for 1 month is probably the same as the wage of a single worker in India for a month. So the fact that they were able to have a positive ROI is tremendous. If we bring this to the Western world, the ROI would be much, much greater. Use case number 5. So this is a company called Makino. They're a worldwide machine tool and manufacturing design company. So what they're using our tools for is better customer service. So when one of their products, one of their tools goes down, somebody calls the call center and says, hey, my piece of equipment has gone down, help me fix it. So they're using remote AR to help facilitate, again, that knowledge transfer from the experts in their call center to external customers. And they were able to decrease their resolution time by 25%, making their customers a lot happier. And the unplanned downtime with their equipment was reduced by 50% because they were doing the procedures much more effectively because trained experts were helping them fix the problem instead of doing it themselves. And they're expecting to save about $2 million this year. It's a pretty good ROI. So in summary, Lockheed Martin's seeing upwards of 95% reduction in the time to interpret work instructions in their environment, resulting in a 50% gain in productivity. Unilever has reported 50% reduction in downtime in their factories. Prince Castle is reporting 100% first-time diagnosis rates. And Caterpillar is reporting 25 to 75% time savings using a remote assistance tool. So back to that hype cycle. We've now established there is actually ROI. So how do we get into the plateau of productivity? Where are we now? So we've established that there are 3 different constituencies within an organization that you really need to work with in order to move from that pilot to scalability. So there's the business leaders, IT, and workforce. Business leaders are easy. Show them return on investment. Again, Unilever, 50% reduction in downtime, resulting in a 1,700% ROI. Lockheed, 95% improvement in time to information, 85% more efficient training, 80% time savings using a remote assistance tool to work with their factory technicians with other experts that may not be on the factory floor. So we've covered that. IT, on the other hand, this can be a barrier. There are security concerns with augmented reality. So we're dealing with CAD models, work instructions, or problems in the field. We're doing remote assistance with broken things. This is all some of the most important information an organization has. If that leaks out to a competitor, or in the case of the military, a foreign nation, that is extremely bad. And it's IT's responsibility to make sure that that organization's data remains safe. So they are going to grill you to make sure that those CAD models and everything are encrypted and incredibly secure. There's privacy issues. When I walk into an automotive company, they force me to put pieces of tape over every camera I have. My phone, my laptop. I've still got glue on my laptop camera. That really pisses me off because it makes a mess of everything. But we're dealing with cameras, and IT is not okay with cameras. You can take pictures of designs, steal plans, and augmented reality doesn't really work very well without cameras. So that's a bit of a concern. And finally, device management. Again, we're storing CAD models and sensitive data on phones and wearable displays. If one of those goes outside the organization, you have an information leak. Again, extremely bad. So how do we get around these? Well, first of all, encryption is incredibly important. But you have to be upfront with IT about your data collection, what you're collecting, so they're comfortable. We recommend starting with mobile devices. A lot of the wearable displays out there right now are not security hardened. They're new. It hasn't been a focus. We've got HoloLens is great, but it's a bit of a prototype. And IT is not exactly comfortable with these things yet. But the iPhone and Android they've been in organizations for a while. They're encryption or they're security hardened. IT is getting okay with them, and there's mobile device management solutions that work for these. So it's much easier for IT to get on board with these mobile devices. And then you want to include IT in the conversation early. I think this is a common mistake. We've certainly made it, where we do an end run around IT. Let's prove the value first, and then we'll worry about IT when we go to scale. IT will screw you at that point. You need to get them in the conversation early so that they're on board, they're your advocate, you're working with them right through pilot all the way to implementation, because they will, at that point, absolutely help you. Finally, the workforce. There are major cultural issues with augmented reality. First of all, just getting used to augmented reality as a technology. Understanding the limitations of AR Kit and AR Core. Wearable displays. I mean, we saw what happened with Google Glass. People didn't really like having a camera pointed at them all the time. Just wearing something is just kind of weird. There's safety implications. If you're in an oil and gas plant and there's an explosion, is this HoloLens going to melt to my face and I'm going to look like a Borg or be completely disfigured? And there's privacy implications again. We've got this camera that's possibly recording everything we're doing. Do I want my boss having a recording of me screwing up my job? Or more importantly, that guy has a camera and he's recording me screwing up my job. And all the data that we're recording. What happens when I leave the company? Do I have to force the company to do facial recognition to delete all the videos of me doing my job or blur them out? There's a lot of thorny issues here. So the way we get around this is we choose use cases that align really well with our workforce and our tasks. So, like I said, choose mobile devices when you possibly can. Field service use cases are great for mobile devices. AR Kit and AR Core are now deployed on billions of devices. We can have great AR experiences that way and see a lot of value. If you do need hands-free, you can try something like a RealAware or HoloLens, but that comes with drawbacks as well. So you really want to align the devices with the use cases. Change management is absolutely essential. So we work with third-party organizations all the time that try to work with the workforces to do education and try to align those use cases with the workforce, get them on board. But we're changing behaviors. We're going from paper instructions, even modern iPad instructions, to now AR instructions. That's going to require a lot of change management. You have to get that involved early on. Transparency. Let the workforce know that you are recording them, or have it optional. Maybe they don't want to be recorded. And be upfront with what you are recording. And finally, education. We're talking about some pretty impressive ROI numbers here. 30%, 40%, 50% more efficiency. If I'm a worker, I'm thinking, oh, wow, the company can still do exactly the same on their bottom line with 50% of the workforce. Does that mean I have a 1 in 2 chance of keeping my job next year? So really need to work with the workforce to tell them, no, you're going to do your job safer, better, faster. Maybe you won't have to work overtime anymore, work weekends. You can stay with your kids. There's a lot of benefits to this technology, and people don't need to be afraid. Not like AI. That's going to take over the world. But AR, that's going to be great for us. So use cases. We have to choose them wisely. Don't be a hammer. I think there's a big impression out there where people think that AR is great for everything. I can tell you, it's not. There are certain limitations. We're still very early with this technology. So we've chosen some key industries to go after. Manufacturing, field service type use cases. Some of the studies I just gave you are kind of in those fields. So helping to improve manufacturing work instructions, helping technicians on a factory line to get help when the line goes down or reduce downtime, helping customers out in the field in a field service context. There's lots of other industries where this is greenfield. A lot of people aren't even touching this. Things like medical, construction, logistics. Great use cases there. So we feel that what makes a really great AR use case is low volume, high complexity type applications. So the space shuttle, they're not making a lot of those. And they're very complex. So this is a kind of a scenario where workers don't have the opportunity to memorize the work instructions, where AR is really helping them. It's helping to give them instructions on the fly. There's also high volume, small improvement type use cases. So this is where something happens all the time. You've got high frequency of these things, and they're just small incremental improvements. At that point, the return on investment makes it worthwhile because you're seeing a really great ROI. So that would be the Prince Castle example, for example. There's a few use cases that don't work. So highly automated use cases. Instead of investing in AR, you can invest in robotics. And if that's successful, great. Now you have this robot, you don't have to pay people. or where low-skilled labor is available. So in that case, investing in AR just may not make sense. Devices are expensive. AR content creation is kind of laborious. You can just hire an army of people. They're probably going to opt to do that. And then finally, highly repetitive use cases are not great for AR. If I'm an automotive factory worker, I'm doing the same task over and over again. And after about the third time I do it, I'm going to memorize the task, and this annoying AR device is just going to become a nuisance. So that's not a great use case. We've seen failures there. OK, so key takeaways. AR is already showing ROI. We are just coming out of that trough of disillusionment into the slope of enlightenment. There's a lot of promise, and a lot of people implementing this in production. But current AR implementations are purpose-built. Don't be a hammer. Now, this isn't to say that you should go get Unity and build your own solution. There are scalable platforms out there that can enable you to create AR work instructions very easily, or AR instructions. But you have to choose your use cases wisely. And you have to get your workforce bought in. This is going to be the most critical piece. Change management, getting people bought in to understand that this is a new way of working things. This is going to be the future. And we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. And education. Again, that workforce being scared of efficiency gains and being scared of being laid off. They have to be the ones pushing this, bought in order to be successful. So if we do all these things, I am very confident that we can move AR out of the trough of disillusionment and up into the plateau of productivity over the next couple of years. Thanks very much.
Wow, that was a lot of content, Scott.
I try.
And a lot of recommendations. Really cool talk. Any questions?
Speechless.
Speechless. People are still thinking. So, there's a question.
You're talking about using platforms that are out there. What kind of platform did you use? Did you use your own platform, build it from scratch?
Yeah, so my company sells a product called WorkLink that is a platform that makes it very easy for you to create workflows. Essentially bring in CAD models, build a type of a flow chart, kind of like a Microsoft Visio flow chart. And for every step in the process, you can add text, video, audio, text-to-speech, and then overlay 3D models on top of real equipment to show how to do things with a simple animation editor. So it's all drag and drop. It's very easy. It's meant for manufacturing engineers or documentation specialists. So it's very scalable, maintainable, and that's how we were able to create all these procedures.
All right. Okay.
And by the way, it's not us creating the procedures, it's the customers creating the procedures. So I've never seen the space shuttle. Nobody on our team has ever seen the space shuttle. It's them creating those instructions, building it. I really wish I had seen the space shuttle, though. That'd be really cool.
We had the next question back there.
Hi. Did you have any use case for ROI for entertainment or advertising use case?
We are focused entirely on industrial use cases. We don't really do anything with entertainment. There's lots of use cases out there, lots of companies doing that, but that's not where we play.
And then there was a question here in the front.
Hi, Scott. One question. How long did it take after the implementation of the AR applications that these figures have shown that you reported us?
Not sure I know what your question is. How long did it take?
How much time has passed until you have these KPIs measured, like the ones you've reported?
It kind of varies. So the Lockheed example, they started working on a couple of case studies. So they started last December. The numbers I cited, they actually did them twice. So they were finished in March. The numbers were so good, they were kind of in the 90% area. NASA went back to Lockheed and said, you did that wrong, you measured it wrong, do it again. And then they came back and the numbers were even better. So they did 2 case studies over basically 6 months. And then, like I mentioned, since then, they've done more. You can definitely do case studies much faster. I think the Unilever example was over the case of a few weeks. All you need is a baseline. You need to if your organization has great metrics and you have that baseline, you understand where you're at, and then you go do it with a different tool. You can get metrics pretty quickly. We've definitely had organizations that don't know what their metrics are, though. They don't actually have a baseline, and so introducing a new tool, and they're like, we think this is better, but we're not sure because they don't have a baseline. So.
Thanks.
More questions? Scott, then I have a question. Do the case studies actually help when you talk to new customers, or are they all saying like, I don't believe it, I don't want to do my own case study, want to do my own pilot project? What's your experience here?
I think they definitely help. I mean, the reason we have these case studies was back at the beginning of 2018, we kind of looked at why we were stuck in pilot purgatory, and everybody was stuck in pilot purgatory. And there's like been very few people actually moving into production, which is why we're doing this talk. And we realized that there were not a lot of publicly available ROI numbers. And so CIOs were out there building their own solutions, downloading Unity, hiring Unity developers to build out their own internal things, spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And we have a scalable solution that can make it much, much better. But they were opting to do it on their own. So we decided that showing ROI to prove that there was value here and hopefully spur the imagination of those CIOs to be, oh, this is how I can apply it in my industry. We've already proved it with a manufacturing example, that we could get to that production stage much, much faster. But I will tell you that we still do short pilots. We try to keep them under a month, just so that they can prove that it'll work in their particular instance, in their particular factory. But we can get to scale much, much faster than before. And I guess the point is, we're getting to scale instead of being stuck in pilots. So yes, they definitely help.
Maybe one last question? If not, then thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
Have a great show.
All right.
Thank you.